What's up, life groups? Week 7, final week. You have committed this last semester to the people that are sitting around you or who are on your Zoom quadrants right in front of you. You've committed to these people and they've committed to you, and that commitment has honored God. You know, the way we show God how much we love Him is how we love other people. So thank you so much for making Freedom Church a place where people can belong and make friends and grow in a faith community. If it wasn't for your life group leader and for your commitment, we wouldn't have such a strong church. So thank you so much for doing that. Here's the last thing I'd ask. You know, when this group ends tonight, it'll be over. The semester will be over. And it will be 13 more weeks until our next life group semester kicks up in the fall. So for over the summer, we're gonna have a 13-week break. Would you do this? Would you set a date tonight with your group to do a meetup? Like meet up at the beach or meet up for a barbecue or do something together, maybe even serve together one day. But set something up so that you can keep those friendships alive so that we'll be ready to kick it off again in the fall. Turn to Luke 22, chapter 22, verse 19. And I'm gonna read about communion. And when I say that word communion, maybe you're new to our church or you're new to faith and you're like, what does that mean? Well, Holy Communion is something that is practiced in all the variations of Christian, Protestant, Catholic traditions, right? And this is we call it communion, but you may come from a tradition that calls it the Eucharist or the Lord's table, or there's different names for it. But what this is the moment where Jesus has his Last Supper with his disciples. That's all I'm gonna read. And that's what we're doing together. We're gathering around this new covenant that Jesus has made possible for his followers. And it says here that Jesus took the bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and he passed it out to them. Okay, so imagine Jesus having bread, breaking it, handing it to it, and they're breaking it into pieces and they're spreading it all out. This is my body, which is given to you. Do this in remembrance of me. And likewise, the cup after they had eaten, saying, this cup is my blood. And so Jesus says, see how this body is broken up for you guys? This is what I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna be broken for the world. Then he holds up this cup. It was probably like a chalice, like a wine. They probably, I don't know if they shared it or they all had their own glasses, but the red wine was a visual picture of the blood. And I know many of you know this already. But what he wants to say, I want you to think about how this was broken up for people. I want you to think about how this wine has been poured out. And I want you to see that from now on as my body and my blood. And I think that illustration has carried on for thousands of years because we understand that. We understand that a sacrifice was made for us on our behalf and for our future. Jesus lived the life that we were supposed to live. He lived, perfect and sinless, and he never did anything wrong, so that when he did die for us, when his body was broken and his blood was spilled out, he did that so that we wouldn't have to do that. He did it for us. Then when he rose from the grave, he's hearkening back. He's saying, remember the new covenant, that I did this for you so that you'll do this for others. Now, will you be willing to be broken for other people? Will you be willing to be spilled out for other people? That's what this communion is all about. It's a new covenant. It's an agreement. In ancient cultures, when they would sign a contract, they didn't always sign their signatures. They didn't always dip a ring in wax and do all that. A lot of times it was just a cup that they would both drink, and that would be the keeping of the contract. And that's what Jesus is doing with them. He holds the glass before you guys tonight or today, and he holds the bread and he says, I've been broken for the world. The new covenant is, will you love people to the point where you live that kind of sacrifice, that you'll be broken for others? I was poured out for the world, for you. Will you also be poured out for others so that they can know my love? And so as you go around the Zoom screen, or you go around the backyard that you're in, or the living room that you're in, I want you to do this. You might want to put some worship music on, but I want you guys to have that moment before you partake. And I want each one of you guys to talk about one thing that God has revealed to you recently. Maybe it was in this life group, about himself and his love. And then one commitment that you are going to make to respond to God's gift to you. one thing that you've learned about him in Revelation, one thing that you've learned new about him. Remember, make this about him. And then 2, here's how I'm gonna respond. Here's how I'm gonna obey. Here's how I'm gonna live out this covenant. Don't do this. Don't go around the room and start throwing out prayer requests. That's not what this is about. This is about honoring him, and like what he says here, remember me. The only way you can get communion wrong, in my opinion, is to not to remember Jesus. So many traditions, so many variations of this. I'm not worried about you getting all those traditions or variations right. I just want to make sure you don't forget Jesus. Make this about him. And let's end this semester by thanking him for who he is, what he's done, and joining him in this commitment to the world.